Jesus chose 12 men to be his inner circle. He called them from boats, from tax tables, from the margins of Jewish society. He taught them for 3 years, ate with them, argued with them, and trusted them with everything he had. After the resurrection, 11 of those 12 changed the world. They went to the farthest corners of the known earth and preached the gospel, almost all of them to the point of death. This is who they were and what happened to them. As we go through each disciple, hold this question: what does it cost to actually believe something? And what does their willingness to die tell us about what they witnessed? Peter. Simon Peter was a fisherman from Bethsaida who worked the Sea of Galilee with his brother Andrew. He was loud, impulsive, and deeply loyal, the kind of man who cuts off a soldier's ear and then weeps in an alley 3 hours later. Jesus renamed him Peter, the Rock, before he had done anything to deserve the name. He denied Jesus 3 times. He was restored on the shore of Galilee over a breakfast fire, and he became the central figure of the early church in Jerusalem, then Rome. He was crucified by the Emperor Nero around AD 64, according to early church testimony. Origen, Eusebius, and others. Peter asked to be crucified upside down, saying he was not worthy to die in the same manner as his Lord. That request was granted. Andrew W. Andrew, Peter's brother, was the first of the 12 to follow Jesus. He met him first, then went immediately to find his brother. He is the quiet one in the gospel accounts, present but rarely spotlighted. Church tradition holds that he preached in Scythia, modern Ukraine and Russia, and in Greece. He was crucified in Patras, Greece, bound rather than nailed to an X-shaped cross so that his death would be slower and he would have more time to preach to the crowd watching. According to tradition, he preached from the cross for 2 days before dying. The X-shaped cross is now called the Crux Decussata, or the Cross of St. Andrew, and it appears on the flag of Scotland, whose patron saint he became, James, son of Zebedee. James was the brother of John, a fisherman, and one of the 3 in Jesus' innermost circle. Peter, James, and John were the only witnesses to the Transfiguration, the only ones Jesus took deeper into Gethsemane. Jesus called the 2 brothers Boanerges, sons of thunder, a name that probably meant they had tempers. They once asked Jesus if he wanted them to call down fire on a Samaritan village. James is the only apostle whose death is recorded in the New Testament. Acts 12:2. Herod Agrippa put him to death with the sword. A short verse. No drama. Just the first of the 12 to die for the name. The year was around AD 44, barely a decade after the resurrection. John. John, brother of James, is the one described as the disciple whom Jesus loved. He leaned on Jesus at the Last Supper. He was the only disciple present at the crucifixion, and Jesus entrusted his mother Mary to John's care from the cross. John outlived all the other disciples. He was exiled by the Roman Emperor Domitian to the island of Patmos, the same island where he received the visions recorded in the book of Revelation. He was the only one of the 12 who did not die by execution. He died of old age, probably in Ephesus, around AD 100. Tradition says that even in extreme old age, he kept repeating the same message: little children, love one another. Philip. Philip was from Bethsaida, the same village as Peter and Andrew. He is the disciple who, when Jesus asked how they would feed 5,000 people, calculated the cost. 200 denarii of bread would not be enough for each to get a little. He preached in what is now Turkey, in the region of Phrygia, and died in the city of Hierapolis. The tradition is that he was crucified upside down or beheaded, depending on the source. A large martyrium was built over his grave in Hierapolis, and its ruins were discovered by archaeologists in 2011. Philip's tomb may have been found. Bartholomew W. Bartholomew is widely identified with the Nathanael of John's Gospel, the man who, when told Jesus was from Nazareth, said, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Jesus saw him under a fig tree before Philip told him about Jesus. When he approached, Jesus said, "Here is a true Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael was immediately disarmed. He preached in Armenia, what is now eastern Turkey and the South Caucasus. The tradition of his death is among the most horrifying of all the apostles. He was flayed alive, skinned, and then beheaded. The Armenian Apostolic Church claims him as one of its founders. He is often depicted in art holding his own skin. Matthew, also called Levi, was a tax collector before Jesus called him. Tax collectors in first-century Judea were Jewish men who collected taxes on behalf of the Roman occupiers, hated by their own community as collaborators, often enriching themselves by overcharging. When Jesus called Matthew, he was sitting at his tax booth. He got up and left. Then he threw a feast for Jesus and invited all his tax collector friends. The gospel that bears his name was written for a Jewish audience, full of Old Testament references, fulfillment citations, and meticulous genealogy. Matthew preached in Judea and, according to tradition, in Ethiopia and Persia. How he died is disputed. Some traditions say he was martyred, others say he died peacefully. Most church historians favor martyrdom, possibly by sword in Ethiopia. Thomas is called Didymus, the twin, and is known forever as Doubting Thomas, the man who refused to believe in the resurrection until he could touch the wounds. When Jesus appeared and offered his hands and side, Thomas said, "My Lord and my God." Jesus replied, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Thomas traveled farther than any other apostle. Ancient tradition and a substantial body of historical evidence places him in India. The Mar Thoma Church in Kerala traces its founding directly to Thomas, who arrived on the Malabar coast around AD 52. He established churches across southern India and was martyred near Chennai, then called Mylapore, killed by a spear thrust around AD 72. His tomb is traditionally said to be under the Santome Cathedral in Chennai, which is built over the site of his martyrdom. James, son Ophalphaeus. James, the son of Alphaeus, is sometimes called James the Less, possibly meaning smaller in stature or younger, or simply less prominent than James the son of Zebedee. He is one of the most obscure figures in the 12. He appears in every list of apostles and almost nowhere else in the New Testament. Tradition holds that he preached in Persia or Egypt and was martyred, most commonly said to have been thrown from the top of the temple in Jerusalem and then clubbed to death when the fall did not kill him. Some scholars identify him with James, the brother of Jesus, though most distinguish them. His fate, like much of his life, is partially hidden from us. Thaddeus, Thaddeus, also called Judas, son of James or Lebbaeus, is best known for a single line in John's Gospel. At the Last Supper, after Jesus said he would reveal himself to those who love him, Thaddeus asked, "Lord, how is it that you will manifest yourself to us and not to the world?" It is a genuinely good question, and Jesus gave him a full answer. He preached in Persia and Mesopotamia, what is now Iraq and Iran. He is traditionally paired with Simon the Zealot in tradition, and the two of them are said to have been martyred together in Persia, killed with a club or axe. Simon the Zealot. Simon is identified in every gospel list as the Zealot, likely meaning he had been part of the Zealot movement, the Jewish faction that advocated violent resistance against Roman occupation. He sat at the same table as Matthew, a man who collected Roman taxes, which is itself a minor miracle of grace. Like Thaddeus, he preached in Persia and is traditionally said to have been martyred there. Some traditions place him in Egypt and Britain instead. His death is recorded as either being sawn in half or crucified, depending on the source. The icon that typically represents him shows a saw, Judas Iscariot. Judas was the treasurer of the 12, the one who carried the money bag. He betrayed Jesus to the chief priests for 30 pieces of silver, the price of a slave under Mosaic law. He led the soldiers to Gethsemane with a kiss as the identifying signal. When he saw that Jesus was condemned, Matthew 27 says he felt remorse, returned the silver, and went and hanged himself. Acts 1 adds a detail. He fell headlong in a field and his body burst open. The field was purchased with the returned silver and called the Field of Blood. Judas is the only member of the 12 whose eternal state is left explicitly uncertain in Scripture. Jesus refers to him as the son of destruction, the one who was lost. He is the ghost at the table of the 12, the warning written into the story of the church's founding. 11 men went to the ends of the earth. Most of them died for what they said they had seen. This is the most important fact about the disciples that most people overlook. These were not people who believed a story they had been told. They were the people the story was about. They were witnesses, in the legal sense. They had been there. People die for beliefs all the time, but the disciples did not die for a belief. They died for a testimony, a claim about what they had personally seen and heard and touched. And nothing, not prison, not torture, not crucifixion, convinced any of them to recant it. The question the disciples leave us with is not whether Christianity is a nice religion. The question is, what did these men see? Because they gave everything, for the answer to that question. And their answer was always the same. We saw him. He was dead. And then he was alive.